A billionaire agreed to an arranged marriage, but the bride's veil revealed the love of his life. Hello everyone, before we begin today's story, I have a small favor to ask. Please hit subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you never miss our channel's new videos. It's quick, free, and the best way to support us in bringing you more dramatic stories. Your support means the world to us. Where are you watching from? Drop your city or country in the comments below. Thank you very much. Now, let's return to our main character. The storm began not with thunder, but with the quiet scratch of a pen against a contract, Ethan Hale's signature settling like a final breath on the page. In the wide marble hall of the Ashford estate, where chandeliers glimmered like frozen stars, the billionaire heir stood as still as a statue, his jaw locked tight. This was supposed to be the day he secured a merger that could save his company, not the day he surrendered his freedom to an arranged marriage. But here he was, surrounded by polished floors that reflected everything except the truth in his eyes. A soft hum of voices drifted through the hall, lawyers murmuring, planners checking schedules, someone whispering about the imported roses. Ethan barely heard them. His gaze was fixed on the one symbol on the table before him, a folded piece of satin, delicate and pale, the bridal veil his future wife was expected to wear. It looked weightless, harmless, but to him it felt like a wall he could not see through, a future he was being forced to walk into blind. "This is the best move, Ethan," one of the Ashford advisors said, adjusting his glasses. "Your father built a legacy worth protecting. Today ensures it survives." Ethan didn't respond. Legacy. Duty. Responsibility. Words that once made him proud now pressed like invisible hands around his ribs. He signed anyway, because he always signed the things that kept everyone else safe. His own heart wasn't part of the negotiation. Not anymore. The only sound that truly reached him came from somewhere deep inside the mansion, a faint echo of a piano, a tune that brushed against an old part of him, the part that used to dream of love instead of contracts. For a fleeting second, he saw a face in his mind, soft brown eyes lifting toward him under the summer sun. Lily Morgan. The only woman he had ever loved, and the one he'd lost 3 years ago when their worlds pulled them apart. His fingers curled slightly, a reflex he couldn't stop. She would hate all this, the grandeur, the forced smiles, the way people treated marriage like a business transaction. She used to say love was made of small things, shared coffee, quiet mornings, paint smudges on her hands. But the Ashfords weren't offering small things. They were offering power. And he was expected to accept it. A voice called his name, snapping him back. "Mr. Hale, the ceremony rehearsal is ready." Ethan inhaled slowly, straightened his tie, and walked toward the doors that would change everything. Behind him, the veil waited on the table, untouched, shimmering faintly in the golden light, its silk folds hiding a secret that would soon shatter the world he thought he understood. The rehearsal hall felt colder than the marble corridor Ethan had just left, even though warm lights glowed from chandeliers and tall windows spilled afternoon sun across the polished floor. He stepped inside with the quiet precision of a man moving through a life he no longer recognized. The planners were adjusting flower arrangements, musicians were tuning instruments, and a photographer was circling the space capturing still shots for tomorrow's press release. All of it felt distant, like watching someone else's wedding unfold. Ethan's assistant handed him a schedule, speaking in a careful tone. "The Ashford family would like you to practice the aisle walk, the ring exchange, and the final photo set. The bride will arrive shortly." He nodded without truly hearing the list. His eyes drifted across the room, settling again on that satin veil draped over a mannequin near the altar. It swayed gently as if stirred by some invisible breeze. A veil meant to cover the face of a woman he had not even met. A veil that made everything feel less human. He walked closer to it without meaning to, his shoes whispering against the floor. When he reached out and touched the edge of the fabric, a strange sense of déjà vu rippled through him. Lily used to wear a scarf just like this in the fall, soft and pale, catching the sunlight as she laughed on the porch of her small apartment. He had loved the way it framed her. face, gentle and unpretentious. It was a simplicity he had not seen in years. "Mr. Hale," someone called from behind him. He turned as the coordinator approached with a polite smile. "Would you mind standing at the altar? We need to check the angles for the photographer." Ethan stepped onto the raised platform. The hall stretched before him, elegant and hollow, its beauty almost intimidating. He imagined walking through this space with a stranger on his arm, cameras flashing, analysts interpreting every detail. Marriage as spectacle. Marriage as strategy. And yet, somewhere deep inside, a quiet ache reminded him of a different kind of promise, a life where vows did not come with clauses. The musicians began to play a gentle piano melody for timing. The notes drifted through the air, slow and warm. He recognized it instantly. Lily's favorite song. The coincidence hit him like a breath he was not prepared to feel. His gaze dropped, his hand curling slightly. He remembered her humming it while painting clouds on her canvas, telling him that love should feel like this song, soft and steady. He swallowed the memory down and straightened as footsteps echoed from the hallway. "The bride is here," the coordinator whispered. Every head turned as a woman approached, her face hidden entirely behind the long satin veil. She moved carefully, almost shyly, hands clasped around a bouquet of small white blossoms. Ethan watched her walk toward him, and he felt something shift inside him. Not recognition, but something close. A quiet warmth. A familiarity he could not explain. She stopped at the first step of the platform, lifting her chin slightly as if she sensed exactly where he was. Ethan exhaled slowly. There was something about her presence that tugged at him, something he could not name. "Shall we begin the rehearsal?" the coordinator asked. Ethan nodded, but his eyes never left the woman behind the veil. Something in the way she breathed, in the way her shoulders lifted softly, felt like a memory reaching out to him from another life. And for the first time since he signed the contract, Ethan felt the ground shift beneath his perfectly controlled world. The moment the coordinator signaled for the music to restart, the woman in the veil stepped closer, lifting her bouquet slightly as if preparing for the aisle walk. Ethan offered his arm out of habit, expecting her to take it with the polite distance that arranged marriages usually required. But when her fingers touched his sleeve, they paused for a heartbeat longer than necessary. A small, warm pressure. Familiar. Too familiar. Ethan felt his chest tighten, not painfully, but with a kind of surprised recognition, like finding an old photograph tucked inside a book you had forgotten. The coordinator clapped softly. "Perfect, now walk together toward the altar." They began to move in sync, her steps light against the polished floor. The piano melody swept through the hall again, and Ethan tried to keep his breathing steady. Every few steps, he felt her grip adjust, gentle and careful. She was nervous, he could tell. But not in the way of someone meeting a stranger. More like someone standing in a place she never thought she would return to. When they reached the altar, the coordinator asked, "Let us practice the ring exchange." Ethan reached into the small velvet box the staff handed him. The ring felt cool and heavy, a piece of metal carrying expectations he had not chosen. The bride lifted her hand, but something made her hesitate. Her fingers trembled for a moment, then steadied as she offered them to him. Her hand was warm. Small. And he knew that sensation. Ethan looked at her through the veil, an instinct stirring that he could not explain. "Are you all right?" he asked quietly. She nodded once, a tiny movement, her breath catching behind the fabric. He slid the ring onto her finger, the metal gliding smoothly into place. She inhaled sharply, almost like she had just relived a memory. The coordinator beamed. "Wonderful. Now, let us practice the final pose for the photographer." The woman turned slightly toward Ethan, and as she did, the edge of her veil shifted just enough for a whisper of sunlight to catch something around her neck. A thin silver chain. A small pendant resting against her collarbone. Ethan's heart stuttered. He knew that pendant. He had given the same one to a woman 3 years ago, when nights were warm and life felt simple. Lily used to wear it almost every day, claiming it made her feel braver when she painted at dawn. His pulse quickened. No. It could not be. The Ashford family would never choose someone like Lily. She would never agree to something like this. And yet, the veil, the pendant, the warmth of her hand, the pieces did not match the story he had been told. One more step to the center, the coordinator instructed. But Ethan barely heard the words. He watched the pendant glint gently as she moved, the same way it used to shimmer when Lily leaned over a canvas, sunlight catching on the curve of the metal. His voice slipped out before he could stop it, barely above a whisper. "Where did you get that necklace?" She froze. Her breath halted behind the veil. A long, fragile silence stretched between them, filled only by the piano's quiet song. She did not answer. Instead, her hand tightened around the bouquet, as if holding on to something only she understood. The coordinator waved the musicians to pause. "Is everything all right?" Ethan forced a calm expression. "Yes. Continue." But inside, something had unlocked. A suspicion. A memory. And a truth that felt too impossible to ignore. As the rehearsal ended and the planners drifted away, Ethan remained at the altar, watching the veiled woman cross the hall. Her steps were soft, her shoulders drawn as if she carried a secret beneath the silk. And for the first time, Ethan wondered if the ceremony he signed up for was not the one he would actually walk into. Something was happening beneath that veil, something that did not belong to the Ashfords. Something that belonged to him. After the rehearsal ended, Ethan remained near the altar longer than necessary, pretending to examine the floral arrangements while his thoughts tangled into knots. The woman in the veil had slipped away with quiet steps, escorted by 2 Ashford staff members, leaving only the faint scent of white blossoms in the air. He waited until the hall emptied, then walked toward the corridor where she had disappeared. Something about that necklace refused to leave his mind. It was not a common design. He had commissioned it himself from a small jeweler in Portland, choosing the silver, the delicate shape, the engraving. He had watched Lily's face light up when he clasped it around her neck. There was no logical reason for another woman to have it. When he stepped into the side hallway, his assistant appeared, holding a tablet. "Ethan, the Ashfords requested that you attend a family dinner tonight at 7. They want you to meet the media. Consultant and finalize tomorrow's statement." Ethan stared past him toward the end of the corridor. "Where is the bride now?" The assistant blinked, surprised. "In the bridal suite upstairs, I believe. The Ashfords arranged for a private room so she can rest before the ceremony." Ethan nodded absent-mindedly, giving a non-committal answer as his mind drifted elsewhere. He forced himself through the remainder of the day, sitting in meetings, reviewing documents, and shaking hands with people who spoke to him like he was already married. But his attention kept drifting. Every once in a while, he would hear a soft laugh from a nearby hallway or glimpse the swish of pale fabric, and something inside him would hitch. By the time the family dinner began, he felt like he was living inside a memory he had not agreed to revisit. The Ashford dining hall was long, warm, and filled with conversations about stock percentages and projected profits. Ethan sat at the head of the table beside Mr. Ashford, who launched into a detailed explanation of the merger timeline. Ethan nodded at the appropriate times, but his thoughts were elsewhere. Halfway through the meal, he heard footsteps in the entryway. He looked up instinctively, expecting to see a staff member. Instead, the veiled woman entered quietly, guided by a bridesmaid. Even in a simple gown, she seemed out of place among the polished crystal and tailored suits, like a snowflake drifting into a room full of heat. Everyone greeted her politely without standing, as if she were merely another part of tomorrow's schedule. She sat across the table from Ethan, her hands folded neatly in her lap. For a long moment, neither of them spoke, but he could feel her presence like a soft pulse. When their eyes met through the sheer layer of fabric, he could not tell if she was looking at him or through him. A dish was placed in front of her. She thanked the server in a quiet voice, and that voice made Ethan's breath falter. He knew that sound. A soft tone, warm and slightly nervous, like someone who always tried to be gentle even on the days she felt small. Lily. It was Lily's voice. Or so close it made every muscle in his body tense. She lifted her fork, and the pendant shifted again, catching the glow of the chandelier. Ethan felt something inside him snap into certainty. He had to know the truth. When dinner ended and the group rose from the table, Ethan stepped around two advisors and reached her before she could leave with the bridesmaid. "May I speak with you for a moment?" he asked. She hesitated, her shoulders tensing beneath the satin. For a second, she looked like someone standing at the edge of a decision she did not want to make. Yet she nodded. The bridesmaid stepped aside. Ethan led her gently toward the quiet hallway behind the dining hall. A space lit by a single warm lamp, far from curious eyes. When they stopped, he turned to her slowly, careful not to frighten her, his voice low but steady. "I need to ask you something," he said. "This necklace, where did you get it?" Her breath sounded like a small gasp behind the veil. Her fingers rose instinctively to the pendant, curling around it protectively, almost possessively. She did not answer. She did not have to. The silence between them became its own confession. Ethan took one quiet step closer. Not invasive, not demanding, just close enough for truth to find its way through the space between them. "Who are you?" he whispered. And for the first time since she arrived, the woman behind the veil trembled. The hallway felt smaller the moment she trembled, as if the air itself was holding its breath. Ethan waited, his heartbeat steady on the outside but stumbling beneath the surface. The soft lighting caught the edge of her veil, casting a faint glow across her shoulders. When she finally spoke, her voice came out barely above a whisper. "Please do not ask me that." It was her voice. He knew it now with absolute certainty. A memory unsealed. A summer evening. Bare feet on a porch. Lily humming softly as she painted. He stepped closer, stopping just inches away, careful not to touch her. "If you truly are someone else," he said gently, "then answering me should be easy. But if you are who I think you are, then I need the truth." She stiffened, her fingers tightening around the pendant until her knuckles trembled beneath the sheer fabric of the glove. He waited. He did not rush her. Finally, she exhaled, a slow, fragile sound that cracked something inside him. Her hand rose toward the veil as if she meant to lift it, but she stopped halfway. "I was not supposed to be here tonight," she said, her voice shaking. "This was never meant to happen." Ethan's brow pulled together. "Then why are you here?" She looked down, the pendant catching the light again. "The Ashfords came to my community center 2 days ago," she said. "They told me the original bride could not go through with the wedding. They said they needed someone to stand in for the rehearsal and maybe through the ceremony, only to preserve the family's dignity. They offered a donation. A large one. Enough to keep the center open for another year." Ethan blinked. "A stand-in. A substitute bride. You agreed to that?" She nodded once, small and tight. "I thought I would simply walk down an aisle for appearances. Nothing more. I did not know who the groom was. They did not tell me. They only said I would not be seen after tomorrow and that my face would stay covered." Ethan absorbed the words slowly. A strange mix of relief and disbelief washed over him. "So you walked in today," he said softly, not knowing it was me. Her breath caught again. Not until the song played. The piano melody. Lily's melody. She lifted her hand hesitantly, resting her fingertips on her pendant. "I tried not to look at you. I tried to stay focused on the agreement. But when I got closer, I felt it. I felt you." The hallway sank into silence. Ethan felt his chest warm with something old and aching. "Lily," he whispered. The name reached her like a fragile truth she had been avoiding. She shook her head quickly, as if afraid of the consequences, but her voice betrayed her. Ethan. I did not want you to see me like this. She turned slightly as if to hide the veil, her posture folding inward. I am not part of this world. You know that. I cannot stand among these chandeliers and contracts and expectations. Ethan stepped closer, and though he still did not touch her, his presence felt protective, grounding. I never asked you to belong to this world, he said softly. I just wanted you. Her breath trembled. 3 years is a long time, she whispered. People change. Not how I feel, Ethan said. Her fingers lowered, brushing the veil unconsciously. For a moment, he thought she might lift it. Reveal herself. Give him the truth he already knew. But instead, she pulled her hand back. I should not be here, she said. Tomorrow, the Ashfords expect a bride. Not me. Whoever I am now. She turned as if to leave, but Ethan's voice stopped her gently. You are not walking away again, he said. Not without telling me why you left in the first place. Her shoulders tightened. The veil shifted with the movement. And when she spoke, her voice carried the weight of a secret that had waited 3 long years to be heard. The quiet hallway seemed to tighten around them when she finally drew in a long, unsteady breath. Ethan waited, still as stone, afraid that the smallest movement might send her retreating behind that veil again. Lily's voice wavered when it came, fragile like a secret that had been carried too far for too long. I left because I thought it was the only way to protect you, she whispered. The word struck him harder than any truth he had imagined. Protect me from what? He asked gently. Her fingers twisted around the pendant, just as they used to when she was nervous. From myself, she said. From the life I came from. From the things I could not give you. Ethan shook his head slowly. Lily, none of that ever mattered to me. It mattered to everyone else, she replied softly. Your board, your investors, your family. They all said the same thing. That you were meant for someone who belonged in your world. Someone polished. Someone powerful. Not a woman who taught children to paint in a rented room under a leaky roof. Ethan felt a familiar ache rise in his chest, a memory of those voices that had tried to dictate his happiness. And you listened to them? I listened because they were right about one thing, she said, stepping back slightly. Your world is sharp. It demands everything. And I had nothing to offer. I did not want to be the reason you lost the company your father built. You had just taken the position. People were watching you. Every step, every choice. Her breath trembled behind the veil. Loving you felt like giving you a weakness they could attack. Ethan's voice dropped to a deeper, steadier tone. You were never a weakness. Lily's hands lowered, the bouquet trembling slightly. 3 years ago, when the merger negotiations began falling apart, someone told me that if I truly cared about you, I would step aside and let you become the man they needed. They said I was holding you back. Ethan's jaw tightened. He remembered those months clearly. The constant scrutiny. The pressure. The whispers. But he never knew they had reached her. I wanted to stay, she continued, her voice cracking. I wanted to fight for us. But every time I tried, I kept hearing that I was costing you everything. So I packed what little I had, and I left before you came back from your trip. I thought you would move on. I did not, Ethan said. I never did. She swallowed, the veil shifting slightly with the movement. I saw your name on the news after I arrived at the community center. I watched you build everything higher and higher. I convinced myself you were better without me. Ethan drew in a slow breath, realizing how deeply the past had carved into both of them. You could have told me, he said softly. You could have asked what I wanted. I was afraid of the answer, she murmured. He stepped closer, still careful, still gentle. What made you come back here? After everything? Lily hesitated, then spoke truthfully. The Ashfords did not know who I was. They only saw a woman who needed help and would agree to wear a veil. They offered enough funding to keep my center alive for the next year. I thought I could endure a few hours behind fabric for the children. I had no idea I would walk into you. Her voice broke on the last word. Ethan's heart tightened. Lily, he said, his tone low and warm. Even after everything, you are still trying to save everyone except yourself. She shook her head, overwhelmed. I did not plan for this. And I do not belong in tomorrow's ceremony. I cannot stand at that altar with you. Not like this. Not as a replacement bride with a borrowed veil. Ethan's voice dropped to a softer whisper, a question pulled from the deepest place inside him. If the veil came off, would you still run? Lily froze. The hallway felt impossibly still. And though she did not answer, the silence that followed held the weight of a truth she was not ready to speak aloud. Lily did not move. For a long moment, she stood perfectly still beneath the soft glow of the hallway lamp, as if balancing on the edge of two different worlds. Ethan could almost hear the quick rhythm of her breathing behind the veil, the same small hitch she used to have whenever she was overwhelmed but trying not to show it. He waited, quiet and steady, letting the silence fill with honesty rather than pressure. Finally, she spoke, her voice trembling like she was afraid of her own truth. If the veil came off, she whispered, I do not know what would happen. I am not the woman you knew. I have changed. Ethan shook his head softly. People change. But love does not disappear just because time passes. She stepped back, shaking her head harder now, the veil shifting with the movement. Do not say that. You do not know what my life has been. You do not know the choices I had to make. You are standing here because you are the Ethan Hale. You are powerful, respected, untouchable. And I am a woman who used to paint in a room that leaked when it rained. You are more than that, he said. You always were. Her voice tightened. Maybe once. But the world is different now. Your world is different. And tomorrow, you are expected to stand beside an Ashford bride, not someone like me. Before he could answer, approaching footsteps echoed from the far end of the corridor. Lamps flickered against the polished walls as two senior Ashford advisors turned the corner, conversing in hushed tones. Lily stiffened instantly. Ethan felt her retreat, her posture folding inward with fear of being recognized. The advisors had not yet noticed them, but their direction made it clear they were heading straight for this hallway. Ethan acted without thinking. Not out of panic, but out of instinct, a protective instinct that had never left him. He stepped closer, positioning his body just enough to shield her from view while keeping a respectful distance. He lowered his voice. You are safe. Stay still. She did. He could feel her presence, warm and trembling behind the veil, like a memory returning in slow pieces. The advisors walked past without looking up, focused on tomorrow's schedule. When the sound of their steps disappeared around the corner, Lily exhaled shakily. Ethan turned back to her. This is what I mean, he said quietly. You are afraid of being seen. Not because of who you are, but because they made you believe you do not belong here. Her fingers gripped the bouquet tighter. They are powerful families, Ethan. They have expectations. Rules. They would never accept someone like me, even as a mistake. They do not get to choose my life, he said. Lily looked away. Your company depends on this alliance. Your father's legacy depends on it. I would not be the reason you lose everything. I will lose more if I pretend to marry someone I do not care for. His voice softened, threading with honesty. And if tomorrow I walk down that aisle with a stranger while the woman I love stands hidden behind a veil, that would be the real loss. Lily's breath caught again, audible even through the fabric. "Do not say things like that," she whispered. "I am only here for the donation. Nothing more. After tonight, I am supposed to disappear again." "Is that truly what you want?" Ethan asked. She did not answer. Her silence said everything. She wanted to run, but part of her had been pulled back, by memory, by truth, by the familiar gravity between them. He took one careful step closer, still leaving her space. "Lily, look at me." She lifted her chin slightly, a tiny motion beneath the veil. "You do not have to remove it," he said softly. "But tell me one thing. If you had known I was the groom, would you still have agreed to replace the bride?" Lily froze. Completely. Her breath hitched. Her hands stilled. And in the stillness, Ethan saw the answer before she even spoke. Her voice cracked when it finally came. "No," she whispered. "I would have run the moment I heard your name." The truth settled between them, fragile and undeniable. And for the first time, Ethan realized she was not afraid of the Ashfords. She was afraid of her own heart. The truth hung between them, delicate and shaking, as if the veil itself were holding it in place. Lily's whisper still echoed in Ethan's mind. She would have run if she had known he was the groom. Not because she did not care, but because she cared too deeply. She took a small step back, and he felt the distance immediately. "Ethan," she said softly, "you have a future tomorrow. A real one. A powerful one. You cannot unravel it for someone who no longer fits into the picture." Ethan shook his head. "You keep telling yourself the world changed. That you changed. But the only thing that changed was the story people fed you about your worth." She looked down, her hands trembling around the bouquet. "Do not try to make this beautiful," she whispered. "This situation is a mess. I am a stand-in bride wearing a borrowed veil. You are a man with a responsibility bigger than the both of us. Nothing about this is simple." "Lily," Ethan said quietly, "love was never meant to be simple." But she lifted her hand slightly, stopping him before he could say more. "The Ashfords trust me to be here for one reason, to protect their image, to keep their daughter's disappearance from becoming a scandal before they can fix it. They gave me strict rules. I am not supposed to talk to you. I am not supposed to look at you. I am definitely not supposed to be alone with you in a hallway at night. And yet you stayed," Ethan said. She hesitated. "Only because you kept asking questions. Only because I felt like I owed you something after all these years." "You owe me nothing," he whispered. "Except honesty," she said. That honesty flickered between them like candlelight. "Ethan," she continued, "you have to walk into tomorrow without me. You have to let them carry on with their plan. If the Ashfords discover I am not who they think I am, everything will crumble. The donation will disappear. The center will close. The children will lose their place." Her voice tightened at the last part. That was the truth she could not escape. It was not fear of him. It was fear of losing the only place she had left in the world. Ethan watched her, understanding settling in his chest like a slow, steady ache. "So you are willing to sacrifice yourself all over again," he said. She looked away, unable to answer. The hallway suddenly felt too quiet. Too fragile. Ethan exhaled slowly. "Then let us forget the wedding for one moment," he said. "Forget the contracts. Forget the donation. Forget the Ashfords. I want to ask you the one thing that matters." Her breath caught. "Do you still love me?" Lily's fingers froze around the bouquet. Her shoulders stiffened beneath the veil. And Ethan saw the truth before she spoke a single word. The silence itself was an answer. A trembling, undeniable answer. She took one step toward him, then stopped as if realizing she had gone too far. "Loving you was the easiest thing I ever did," she whispered. But staying with you felt like betraying everything I came from. Ethan shook his head. You were not a betrayal. You were hope. She inhaled sharply, the veil brushing her lips as she steadied herself. Ethan, if I stay near you any longer, I will break the promise I made to myself. What promise? He asked. She lifted her face slightly toward him. The promise that if I ever saw you again, would not let myself fall back into a life that does not belong to me. Her voice softened, barely audible. You and I are standing in two worlds that will never meet. They can, Ethan said. If we choose it. Lily took another step back, placing distance where her heart clearly did not want it. Ethan, she said, her voice barely holding together, tomorrow morning, before the ceremony. I will be gone. That is the only way to protect both of us. Her words struck him with quiet force. Lily, goodbye, she whispered through the veil, her voice trembling with everything she refused to feel. She turned to leave. And Ethan realized the real ceremony he feared, was the one where she walked away again. The moment Lily turned away, Ethan felt the air leave the hallway as if she had taken all of it with her. Her steps were soft, barely audible, but every one of them carried the sound of finality. She was leaving. Again. He could not call after her. Something about the fragile truth between them made him afraid that raising his voice might shatter her completely. So he let her walk. But his heart followed every step. That night, he barely slept. The mansion settled into silence, the kind that felt too heavy for a home filled with chandeliers and prestige. Ethan sat on the edge of the guest bed, staring at the polished floor while the events replayed in his mind. The veil. The pendant. Her trembling voice. The quiet confession that she still loved him. And her promise that she would disappear before morning. At dawn, the sky stretched pale blue over the estate, and soft clouds drifted like distant thoughts. Ethan walked down the hallway toward the bridal suite, not sure what he expected to find. Maybe he hoped she had changed her mind. Maybe he only needed to know she was safe. But when he reached the door, he knew immediately. The silence behind it was different. Empty. Final. He pushed the door open gently. The room was neat, untouched, as if no one had slept there at all. The veil lay folded on the chair near the window. Her bouquet rested beside it, still fresh, still fragrant. But Lily was gone. He stepped inside slowly, the soft morning light catching on the fabric of the veil. For a long moment, he could not move. Then he saw something else on the vanity table, a small envelope with his name written in her handwriting. Ethan picked it up with careful hands and opened it. Inside was a short note. I am grateful that life let me see you one more time. Please do not follow me. The world you belong to is brighter than anything I can offer. Let this be the moment we both move forward. With love, always. Lily. Ethan closed his eyes, the note shaking slightly between his fingers. He knew she meant every word. He also knew she was wrong. He looked out the window at the estate grounds below, watching cars arrive for the ceremony he no longer wanted any part of. Advisors were already gathering. Photographers were preparing. The Ashfords were moving like a machine designed to conceal one daughter's absence and replace her with another. Ethan folded the note carefully and slipped it into his pocket. Then he picked up the veil. Satin pooled gently in his hands, weightless yet heavy with everything that had led them here. He walked out with steady steps, moving past planners who greeted him without noticing the shift in his expression. When he reached the grand hall, Mr. Ashford approached with a rehearsed smile. Ethan, excellent timing. We are ready for the ceremony. Your bride will be escorted in shortly. Ethan met his gaze with calm clarity. There is no bride. The room fell silent. Advisors turned. Planners froze. Mr. Ashford blinked. I beg your pardon. Ethan lifted the veil slightly. Lily is gone. And I will not marry someone else in her place. Ethan, the merger will happen if it is meant to, he said. But my life will not be signed on a contract anymore. He walked past them, toward the front doors. No one stopped him. No one dared to. Outside, the morning air felt cold and honest. Ethan stepped into it, inhaling deeply. He did not know where Lily had gone. But he knew where he needed to be. Not at the altar. Not beside a family who hid truths behind closed doors. He needed to find her. Not to force her back, not to trap her in a world she feared, but to tell her one thing she had never been allowed to believe. She was not a replacement. She was not a weakness. She was the love of his life. And this time, he would not let the world decide for them. This cinematic love drama follows a billionaire who agrees to an arranged marriage only to discover that the veiled bride standing before him is the woman he lost years ago, creating one of the most emotional millionaire stories built on fate, sacrifice, and rediscovered love. As the narrative unfolds through intimate moments, quiet revelations, and deep emotional tension, viewers experience the heart of millionaire stories where social expectations clash with genuine connection. The plot explores how a powerful man confronts the truth of his past, rejects a strategic alliance, and chooses authenticity over status, embodying the core of millionaire stories that celebrate courage, vulnerability, and emotional healing. With richly detailed scenes set in grand halls, soft-lit corridors, and fragile spaces where two hearts reconnect, the story elevates the genre of millionaire stories by blending romance, class divide, and personal redemption into a seamless cinematic experience. Perfect for audiences who love emotional depth, dramatic twists, and timeless themes of love prevailing against all odds. Ultra-realistic close-up front-facing portrait of Character 1, a white male in his early 30s, around 6 feet tall, with natural fair skin, subtle texture, and visible pores, strong symmetrical jawline, straight nose, lightly defined cheekbones, calm light blue eyes with sharp clarity, medium-length dark brown hair slightly tousled, neutral expression conveying quiet depth, wearing simple, well-fitted charcoal clothing with no logos, soft diffused studio lighting, balanced color grading. Photorealistic. 8K DSLR detail, no cartoon, no CGI, no illustration, identity lock phrasing, the same man in every frame, delivering consistent realism and precision.